Hello, Kristina. Welcome to the Women Awaken podcast.
Hi, Whitney. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to have you. I'm really excited to have this conversation, even though I really wish it could be in person because I want to be where you are. Can you tell us where you are?
I am currently taking a 2-month sacred pause for myself in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. My soul has been whispering at me. I came here in January and took my niece and my client with me, and I was just in the pool, Whitney, and the snowbirds were in there, and they're like, "Oh, we're here for 2, 3 months," and I just was in the pool and I was just like, oh, like how beautiful would that be to be here for like a few months and just take like a pause on life and just recharge. Like I'm a projector, so I need a lot of downtime and my plate is quite heavy at home and I have a lot of responsibility and I just was like fantasizing of like this break and then an opportunity came up and I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going. I'm going to take 2 months and I'm going to go be on the beach and I'm going to meditate and I'm going to go to yoga and I'm going to integrate all of the healing work that I have been doing and just like honor myself and show up for me. So I am currently 3 weeks in. You could probably hear the birds chirping, maybe even the ocean in the back, but it's absolutely beautiful. I'm so grateful and I'm really proud of myself for showing up and being here.
I'm proud of you as well. I think that sounds like such a nourishing, refreshing, cleansing experience to be there. I mean, anywhere that's more tropical by the ocean, it's so calming to the nervous system. And if only all of us had the ability to take a portion of our year in a place like that. I think all humans deserve that with the hustle and bustle of typical life, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, we're going to get to it, but you're a bit of a hustler because you're a hardworking, badass spiritual woman, as am I, and many of us are. And we like our work. We love our work. It's our mission. It's important, but there has to be that ebb and flow, right? There has to be that time where you recharge and reconnect with yourself because when we are in our element doing our work, we're giving, but we're still the feminine. We need to receive. We need to be in a place where we're not active. We're just receiving the deliciousness of life, which is to me is what Puerto Vallarta is. I've been there. I know its secrets.
Girl, literally, like I get why people come here and don't leave. Like life is just so much slower and easier, and the sun is out every day, and I'm like, oh, yeah, you nailed it. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. I'm so envious of your tan. I feel so pale in New York. I'm like, help. All right, my dear. So, Kristina, you are a self love, inner child, and embodiment coach. You focus a lot on shadow work, the Kundalini, breath work, cycle breaking, which I love. And it's something that you and I are currently engaged in our healing work because, Kristina, you were kind enough to share a beautiful healer with me that I'm now currently working with, Jolene. What's her last name?
Starling, Dr. Jolene Starling.
Dr. Jolene Starling, remarkable woman. I'm going to put her information in the show notes because she's phenomenal. You had a download, you had a psychic insight to connect me with her when we were chatting close to the eclipse. Remember, we were both like, ah,
Right.
and you're like, girl, you have to call her. And you were right. I'm going to ask her to be on the show because she's so remarkable and such a great healer. But let's get into your work because you also help people with breaking the cycle and getting to the root of what's going on and helping them with that inner child stuff, the self-love stuff, the things that women, because of the thousands of years that we've experienced oppression and not having a real place in the world or a voice, it's hard for us to know that we can love ourselves, that we can be loved without X, Y, or Z factors, right? That we can just be and then move into our power because we're fucking powerful.
Amen, sister.
So tell us about your work. Tell the world, tell the audience, tell us all about what you do and also how you got here to this work.
Mm, I am just like on this most incredible healing journey, Whitney. Healing is like everything I believe in. It is everything to me, is to heal, to break the cycle, to rewrite the lineage. So just a quick little snippet from my childhood. I grew up in a really hard childhood. My mom, I'm one of 5 children. My dad had 5 kids by 3 women. My dad is a very well known, powerful Hell's Angel. Most everyone I know completely fears him in the community. I was terrified of him, which evidently meant that we were terrified of him as children, right? And so my dad's like this crazy fucking badass biker, and then my mom really struggled with addiction. So the first like 4 years of my life were great, and then 4 years old she starts locking herself upstairs and smoking crack cocaine. Everything fucking shifted. Um, Started going through life, stuff got worse and worse and worse. Drug dealers in and out of my house, no power. My dad's out living his lavish life. My dad had my sister, which is 13 years older than me, myself, and then three brothers. I have three brothers. And if within my lineage, boys mean everything, girls mean nothing. So my dad's boys got everything. They were put on this pedestal. They were just, they lived in, nice houses in the north end of town of pools, and I lived in poverty. Because my sister was the firstborn child and she was 13 years older than me, she got spoiled rotten. But because I was the second girl, I kind of was just like, didn't want you, you're a girl, you're useless to me, off you go. So not only on my dad's side of the lineage, it's that way, it's also on the same side as on my mom's. Like, boys mean everything, girls mean nothing, boys can do no wrong, girls, everything is your fault. So I'm sure you can imagine, I came from a lot of fucking trauma. Um, Growing up. So then I kept like attracting in these really abusive relationships. It just kept reconfirming that old belief that I wasn't worthy, and really like abusive men. And, they would take me on trips and like really try to hurt me and try to kill me. And, when I was in my early 20s, I went to Thailand, I had to escape for my life, and so on and so forth. And then 2012, my mom died of lung cancer from smoking crack cocaine. That didn't really wake me up yet. I had already started my healing journey in my younger 20s, but not quite. I hadn't really started embodying it yet. I had a lot of literature, but hadn't embodied it. And then kept dating these men, super abusive. And then in 2017, I was in a long-term relationship. It was August 23rd. I got the phone call that my sister had died from a fentanyl overdose. And that right then and there, Whitney, rang my bell so fucking hard. I felt like I had no choice but to heal. And that's when the embodiment and the healing journey really began. I pushed everybody out. I made this vow to myself that I'm going on a fucking healing journey. Nobody's coming like with me. This is what I'm doing for myself. And I really started to do a lot of inner child work. And I really started to show up for myself and brought all these team of healers on board with me and just started healing and started embodying. And I haven't looked back since. And now the woman who I am today, I'm just like blown away. I'm like, I had no idea that this woman right here would even ever exist. And so I know that if I can break the cycle and I can do the healing work and I can rewrite the lineage, so can everybody else. And so I'm using my gifts and my journey to hold space for people to do the same. So I really invite people and create a space for them to build a life that they love from the inside out, because everything really begins internally. And how we feel internally and what's going on internally for us is going to then represent what's going on externally. And so that's just the journey that I've been on. And it's been like the most profound, beautiful journey I could ever ask for. And I'm so unbelievably grateful. Oh, I can't hear you, girlfriend.
Whoops, sorry. I muted it because now I have background noise too. I have people mowing lawns and doing landscaping outside. It's a noisy day. It's a Friday. That's thank you for sharing your background and that remarkable and unique story. Before we get, I just have to ask, like, I've never known a Hell's Angel. Was your dad present? Was he still married to like, were your mom and dad together while he was in this Hell's Angels? And does that mean like he traveled a lot? Was he still there?
So, no, he had 5 children by 3 women. So he had multiple women all over the place. Um, Most Hells Angels, I'm gonna say, from my perspective and being raised in that club, are narcissistic. So it's very hard for them to be present. It's very hard for them to be hands-on fathers. So absolutely no. If you're gonna choose to be in the club comes first. Your children don't. Your family does not come first. Your club comes first. And that's just how it is. So we were always pushed to the side. My dad's life was very, all about him. He was very handsome, my father, very handsome. So it was like he was like this, like handsome, super powerful president, Hell's Angel, like women all over him, money, and like traveling, and like it was wild. Like honestly, Whitney, I'm not joking you. When my dad passes away, I will not be surprised if we don't make a movie over this. Like his life and me, like children and breaking the cycle and like all this craziness. Because it's fucking wild, girl. Like it's wild.
That is wild. Do you still talk to him? Are you in touch with him?
Yeah, so after my sister died in 2017, I pushed him out because I took my sister's ex-husband to court to fight for parental guardianship of my niece and my nephew because they were quite fucked up together, and I had already more or less had been like the third parent anyways and raised them. And, reflecting back now, like I had gone to my dad and was like, hey, I need you to step up here and I need you to help me. Well, he wasn't able to step up for me as a child, right? He left me to live in poverty with my mom. So, of course, he would be able to step up with his grandchildren. And it's not because he's a shitty person, it's just because he didn't have the skills. So when I took my dad to court, he would like didn't take my side at all. He took my sister's ex-husband's side, and I was like, "Fuck you! I'm done with you. Like my whole life, I needed you to be there for me, and you've chosen not to. You're done. Goodbye." Pushed him out. Went on this incredible healing journey. 5 years later, I did a bunch of father wound work. 2 years actually to this month, and I all branched out to him and I called him in for a meeting and I said, like, so we met at the local Starbucks and he had his colors on, his vest on, he was on his bike and everybody knows him and,
Mhm.
saying hi. And so I start this conversation and I say to him, I say, so dad, do you believe in a higher power? And he looks at me and he's like, well, I ain't going to make any fucking accusations. And I said, I do. And so I'm just going to let you know that I believe that my sister has sent me signs for the last 5 years asking me to come heal this relationship with you. And she keeps whispering at me, go heal your relationship with dad. Go heal your relationship with dad. And I'm here now. And I've also realized, dad, that it's not that you didn't show up for me because you didn't love me or I was unworthy of your love. It's because you didn't know how. And it's because you actually had a boatload of trauma yourself and you didn't know how to navigate that and you didn't have the skills. Whitney, I could feel the weight off of his shoulders. Like it was just like this amazing like feeling that was just lifted. And I was like, whoa. And my whole life, Whitney, I had like done everything I could to try to get him to validate me. I'm like, oh, if I date this bad boy, he'll validate me. If I date this drug dealer, he'll validate me. Oh, if I bake him these cookies, he'll validate me. He'd never fucking validate me until I did the healing work. I came home to myself and I spoke the truth of healing. I spoke the truth of spirituality. I spoke the truth from my soul. And now he validates me all the time. We have a better relationship now than we ever have.
Wow. That's incredible. That's wild. Thanks to your sister for orchestrating that. What was, so after you spoke with him, do you feel like that healed the father wound? Because even if you can recognize that, we can still kind of play out the patterns. Because I imagine that the work you do with the clients you work with, when we're doing inner child stuff, a lot of it is trying to break pattern, like the cycle breaking that you talk about, right? We don't want to keep going after men that it's like we're trying to win over our dads. We want our dad's love, so we seek it in other men. Did you feel like you broke that pattern when you made peace with your dad?
Well, I feel that I've broken that pattern when I learned to love myself. And I learned to and I made that bridge between little Kristina and big Kristina, right? I no longer was like looking for that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because little Kristina could trust me. So I was no longer looking for those men that were like abusive for that external validation that matched my father. However, no, the father wound is not healed. Absolutely not. Like I'm just going through again another layer of the wound. As you know, it's like an onion. It's not linear. There's just one layer, then another layer, and I'm like, fuck, weren't we already here? Haven't we already been here before? And no, we're back here again. So, and he very much still triggers me. Absolutely feeling unworthy sometimes and feeling like I'm not being seen. And now it's just like I have the skills to like tap into little Kristina and like be there for her instead of like lashing out and projecting on him
Hmm.
or going to see Jolene and using my tools and like helping and navigating through it. So just the big shifts have been within myself for sure.
Beautiful, beautiful. And thank you for clarifying that because it's nice, it's refreshing to hear. I think that for a lot of us, I think most of us, there's some wounds that won't even fully heal in this lifetime, but it's about learning the healing process and learning how to identify the wounds and to tend to them and to see what sort of triggers them or, kind of like reopens them. And then we work through it the best we can because honestly, there's some wounds that carry on lifetimes. I mean, very well, this father wound could have been, it might have been already around for several lifetimes. As you're probably aware, like your dad might have been in your past life as a different presence in your world and created a wound there. And it's such an interesting cosmic web.
In my Akashic, in my past life readings, like I have been picking the same dad for at least 11 lifetimes.
No.
Like
So he's
this
been
is
your
the
dad?
same story.
He's been your dad this
This
whole
has been
time?
the same story. Yes, for 11 lifetimes. Back to 11 lifetimes ago, he was my dad, pushed me away, sent me away to schools. My sister was the oldest one, took care of our family. My parents died in a like buggy accident in one lifetime. Like, it's fucking wild.
It's so crazy.
Like, what is going on?
It's such crazy shit. Wow. Well, you guys are really meant because I've heard you could like the same soul will come through in your family, but often like it sounds weird about who's your dad now. Could have been your brother a last lifetime or even your husband another lifetime and all kinds of dynamics. So the fact that he's been your dad shows that there's a powerful like paternal energy that you're meant to like understand and work through. So anyways, thank you for sharing that because I think listeners of my show are very tied into healing father wounds, healing inner child wounds, trying to break the cycle of unhealthy relationships and connections. And it's all tied together, right? So when you work with somebody on, I mean, when you first someone comes to you because self-love, inner child work, embodiment, it's all connected. So how do you first approach someone to with the work that you do?
Oh, because I'm a projector, I wait for the invitation. So I typically they come to me, and just kind of like our conversation, we go through my journey, we go through their journey, what wounds they needed to heal, where are they noticing they're giving their power away, what old patterns. Like my clients are typically, ready to do the work and are self-aware. And so we just go on a journey together of like, connecting with their inner child and going back to old wounds and old stories and learning. Like I teach them how to show up for their inner child, how to create that bond with that inner child. Like for me personally, I believe that like everything Whitney shifted when I really started to show up for her and I really started to love her. And the more I started to love her and the more I started to show up for myself and her, it just built up my confidence. So that's just what I teach my clients how to do, is to show up for themselves and show up for their inner child.
How did you learn to love yourself after you went through a lot of trauma and your own struggles with addiction and abusive relationships? What was the first step and then the steps that followed after that got you where you are today?
Well, when my sister had died in 2017, I was in a really abusive relationship and I was so unhappy, but I didn't know how to get out. And so when she died, it really switched my perspective on things. Like one time, I believe, is like one of the most beautiful gifts that you can ever give anybody. And it's the only thing we can't buy, and it's really the only thing that we can't get back. And so I was looking at him and I'm in this relationship and I'm like, I don't even like you. What am I doing here? Why am I giving you my time? Like nothing's good enough for you. Like you don't, all you do is put me down all the time. So I'm fucking out of here. See you later. Took me 2 years to leave. But when I had made that choice to leave and go on the healing journey, I was choosing myself. And right then and there, I had made like this pact to myself that like I wasn't going to date. I didn't date any guys for 2.5 years. I had no one stroking my ego. Wasn't on any dating and nothing. Like it was me in my bed every single night with my dog, going to yoga 6 days a week, meditating, doing the work, showing up. Like I was so determined to do the work and to heal. I was like, I watched my mom. I watched my mom go down this path and die. I watched my sister go down this path and die. I'm like, I can't fucking do this. I know where this is going to end up. I refuse. Like, I didn't come this far to just come this far. I only had two choices, either sink or fucking swim. I didn't want to sink. I already saw what that looked like between my mom and my sister. So fuck, girl, do the work. Just started to do the work.
Wow. And so where were you? Like, where were you physically? Where were you living? What kind of work were you doing? Because, also a lot of people who tune into this podcast are those who kind of feel the call to move through from more conventional, traditional professions into a more soul guided path, their soul. Do you feel like you're on your soul path? And if so, like what were the steps you took to move from, or what kind of work were you doing before versus moving on to the path you're on now?
I was an EA. I worked in inner city residential school, like elementary school. So a lot of the children are byproducts of the residential school, a lot of First Nations children. I loved that so much. It was like I was able to show up for those little children the way that I needed someone to show up for me, which was so beautiful. And then I was doing that for a few years. And then I was on a call with one of my coaches, and I was actually going to go to school to be a social worker. And she was like, I think you should go interview two social workers before you make that decision. And I was like, I always had known that I had these gifts as like a healer, but I just didn't know how to like make a career out of it. And she's like, I actually think that you're a coach, Kristina. She's like, do people come to you for advice? I'm like, well, yeah, all the time. And she's like, yeah, I think you should probably think about becoming a life coach and using your wisdom in your journey. And she's like, empowering other people to do the same. And I'm like, oh, like I can make a career out of this. And so I took a life coaching school certificate, and I just started on this journey. And so I absolutely believe that I am on my soul's path. Like I said in the beginning of this call, I live, breathe, eat healing. It is my absolute jam. It means more than anything to me is to heal myself and to show up for my late sister's children in a way that no one has showed up for their children before in my lineage, and to rewrite the lineage and just to like put an end to a lot of this shit. And what I don't get done in this lifetime, hopefully I get it done next.
Just keep working on it. Just keep one to the next. There's no end, right? It's just transition to the next lifetime that
Mm-hmm.
gives us different opportunities, which I try to keep in mind because I'm sure you understand this, but there's certain things that happen to us in life that feels like, why the fuck did this happen? And this is so treacherous. This is so awful. This doesn't make sense. Everything is an opportunity, right? For our soul's growth. Our soul chooses every situation we enter into. So when we're able to have that mentality, it's like, all right, let's go. Like bring it, bring this pain, bring this struggle, bring this cognitive challenge so that I can grow, I can learn. But with that in mind, Christine, I want to get back to self-love because that's something that I think it's almost an epidemic. People don't love themselves on our world.
I
We
agree.
learn to not love ourselves. From the time we're born, we're basically given 1,000 reasons a day not to love ourselves. You're too difficult. You're too different. You don't fit in. You don't look the right way. You don't act the right way. You don't think the right way. If you don't do X, Y, or Z, no one's going to like you. A very conditional energy on this planet, right? Which, as we know, as more spiritual beings, like in a spiritual realm, we're all unconditionally loved all the time because we're part of the fucking universe, which is the divine source one. But we come here and we're like, well, shit, if I don't look the right way, if I don't act the right way, if I'm not perceived the right way, I can't be loved. And then in turn, we don't love ourselves. And it keeps us in this cycle on this planet where we're just ever trying to chase after validation so that we can feel enough. But we learn on our journey that you can never get it outside of yourself. It's always an inside job. So what's your take like from going from that place where you lost two of the most important people in your life, these beautiful feminine figures in your life, you lost them to that cycle? Because to me, addiction and destruction is because you don't love yourself. That's why it happens. We're not chasing after a drug, we're chasing after love. That's what the drug represents. We can finally feel a bit of relief because we don't love ourselves. It's so painful not to love yourself. So watching those two women and succumb to that and die from that, and then but you're in the midst of an unhealthy relationship, that took 2 years to get out of. How did you start to cultivate that self-love, and what does self-love mean to you? Because a lot of people have different ideas about that. So I'd love to hear your take on it and how you shifted into that after like so many dire situations.
Just showing up for myself, girl. Each yoga class, each time I got up to go to the gym, each time I put something healthy in my body, each time I said no, each time I was able to honor myself, each time I stayed at home instead of going out partying, each time I did something great for the community. It's just these tiny little bricks that lay down this foundation, right? And the more we do and show up for ourselves, and then like that links back to my inner child, like the more I showed up and was true to myself, the more confident she felt that she could trust me, and then we gained this like bond together, right? And it just kept going, and then it becomes addicting, feeling so good. I'm like, fuck, this feels pretty good. Like, I'm going to keep doing this, and how can I do this? And and then my boundaries get better, and then I'm exploring more, and I'm speaking my truth, and it's just like this beautiful effect that we have that when we just like start with these small little choices, and then we just start to build this foundation, and then just the wall just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then we just really truly feel stronger and more better about ourselves. And for me, like self-love is just like being on my plumb line of being, is just like honoring myself, saying no when I mean it, having boundaries, showing up, trying new things, exploring, taking sacred pauses, resting on the weekends, journaling, whatever that looks like for me in my day, like just really showing up for myself and putting myself first and knowing that it's not selfish. And this is something that I'm really working on teaching my late sister's daughter, Liberty, my niece. I refer to her as my child because I more or less have raised her since she was a little girl. And so I'm teaching her, among many things, is obviously to love herself, and that it's not selfish for her to choose herself, and it's not selfish for her to say no, and it's not selfish for her to not give her body away to boys that don't deserve it. And really just to explore what that looks like no woman in my lineage loved themselves, and like a lot of people in my family, they struggle with it. They go, who does she think she is? And I'm like, I'm just on this journey of learning how to love myself and accept myself for not just the good parts, but also my shadowy parts, and realizing some days are fucking hard and some days are going to be messy, and that's okay. And holding space for all of me and her, and feeling safe to do so, to show up who we are and not feel like we're going to be criticized or abandoned because, today doesn't look as pretty as it did yesterday. Right. And just like being our beautiful, imperfectly perfect selves.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. And what you just said, it reminds me, this is why I think that the inner child work, addressing the mother father wound is so important, because for me, those are always the things that pull me away from that center point, from that self-love. It's that calling that says, ooh, this is, you can get what you need here, right? A tempting relationship with somebody that you know doesn't care about you, but they're willing to give you the attention that you didn't receive from your father, from your mother, whatever it is. And it takes you from feeling in your power and aligned, and you're tantalized, right? You're like, ooh, that sounds like it will heal me. That sounds like what I always wanted but couldn't have. And it's very tempting. And unless we know how to recognize it, and to be honest, like, we're going to fall, right? We're going to sometimes go back to it. And that's okay. It's how we learn, right? As we said, it might take several lifetimes. Sometimes we have to dip back into it and go through a relationship that puts us through the ringer and get spit back out. And we're like, whoa, shit, I did it again, And that's okay. But I think that the more that we learn, like you said, to be in that energy of choosing ourselves first, I think it's also about thumbs up.
Spirit likes that. Spirit's
Yeah.
like, yes, I like that.
I think it also ties to the idea of your relationship with your inner child, because I've heard it described. A beautiful guest on my show, Jana Wilson, who wrote a book called Your Wise Little One. She talks about her connection with her inner child and how she checks in with it, because for a long time she didn't, and she would just go about her life and go after the impulses, and she ignored her little child. But when she started paying attention to her inner child, she could hear it saying, please, no, please don't go with this guy. He might hurt us again. He might bail on us again. And I don't know if you, and I'd be curious to hear, like, since that breakup, if, and you're 2.5 years single, if you ever got back in with this, but I know I've been in my element, in my power, and then along comes somebody who at first can seem like, oh, this is a great loving connect, like this is exciting. But then the red flags start to show and the signs start to show that maybe they don't actually have your best interest at heart. And maybe they're not going to treat you how you deserve. And your inner child says, no, please, no, let's not go with them. They're going to hurt us just like we were hurt before. But then my need for that, like for that, to have that wound tended to, like the hope to get what I couldn't get from my dad, whatever it is, goes after it and says, well, maybe it'll be fine. And then I get hurt. So until we really, it's almost like getting sober, really, right? It's like until you decide you're fucking done with drugs, alcohol, and shitty men who want to hurt you, you're not done, right? It takes what it takes. But it can be very easy to get pulled into it because it can be dressed up as a good thing, right? But if you listen to your intuition and your inner child, it's going to be telling you, it's going to show you the truth. We just choose to ignore it until we don't, right? The same with drugs and alcohol. We choose to ignore it. We're like, no, I can go drink again. It's fine. I can party. It's fun. It's just a fun time. That's what we tell ourselves. But our inner voice knows, did it work last time? Were you able to do that before? So So I'd love to hear from you. Like, since you did those 2.5 years without dating, have you gotten stuck back into something that was unhealthy? Have you been able to stay in your frame and like not deviate from that? What's your experience been like with dating? Because dating is tough, right? Like you can't get totally sober from dating unless you want to be a nun, right? We want to have love, but if we've been a love addict or a sex addict or a relationship codependent addict, we got to learn how to find balance with it?
Totally. Yeah. So I've been single for nearly 5 years this September, and it was 2.5 years I spent on my own, and then I started, dipping my toes and kind of dating again. Um, there's only been a couple. The first two guys were like replicas of my father, so like bad boys. So they had like reopened that bad boy wound. Um, they didn't treat me badly. Like it was just they weren't even enough to like be my boyfriend. It was kind of more just like a little fling, and we had a little fun for maybe like a few months, whatever. And then now I currently have like a little boy toy friends with benefits now that I'm here in Mexico, and um, he's teaching me other things for sure. So here's the thing. It's like I feel it's like yes, we dip back in, but that had told me that there was a few things that I still needed to learn that I hadn't quite learned yet, and I have to learn these things in order to get to the one. So I dated a few bad boys. That chapter's now done. I will never date a bad boy again. That is now done. No one will take me off my plumb line, right? So yeah, door closed. So now with this, my boy toy here in Mexico, it's like he's not mean to me. He's not a dick to me. So like that tells me that like I've done that growth where most men in my past have been that way towards me. But the issue with him is that he's just a boy. He's not a man. But he's showing me different things. Like he's really showing me how to be soft. And so I'm doing, like you just had mentioned, that beautiful soul that was on your show about checking with her inner child. He's actually got me to start doing that. Like not him himself, but like the work that I'm doing. So now I've been checking with little Kristina for the last like 3 months or so daily. What does she need? Advocating, listening to her, and then being able to express myself softly, not being mean, not raising my voice, not, going for the jugular. Because, girl, it hasn't been all them in my past. Like, I have my own shit too from my trauma, and like, I used to be quite aggressive. And so I really have worked super hard on softening myself and really coming into my feminine energy. And that's what he's teaching me is that it's okay to advocate for myself softly and to be kind. And I don't have to yell and I don't have to swear, and it can be received. So I think that like all these men have like brought me one step closer to finding the one.
Yes, yes. And I think that that's the delicate and difficult dance that we do is, I got it. Okay, another confirmation. because like you said with the bad boys, that door was closed, but it wasn't closed till it was closed. I don't know how many bad boys you had, but let's say, you were like, I'm done at two, but there was two more left to go. Like there's something to say for trusting the process, like trusting that there's certain things you just gotta, you may be ready for, a solid, stable relationship, but there's more you have to learn. I'll never forget, it's interesting because it's when I actually dated someone 10 years younger than me back in 2022. No joke. Right before I met him, I met it with my friend at the beach in California. And I had just gone through another little situationship that was not fun and that really hit some deep wounds. And it was meant to be. It was a healing process. He was a gift. He was a karmic, whatever, helped me learn things. Needed to happen. And I told her, I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm not going to date. I'm just, until I meet my person, I am not having any kind of relations with anyone unless we're like, we are devoted and dedicated. And she's like, girl, maybe you just need to get some ass. And I was like, excuse me. Like, no, that's not me anymore. I'm not doing that. I'm not kidding you, Kristina. I left the beach and I ran to Trader Joe's to go like get some stuff. And I'm shopping in the produce. And this guy comes up behind me and says, hey, what gym do you go to? And he's this younger dude, and he was just like hitting on me in a Trader Joe's, asked for my number. We ended up dating for a year. And it's just insane that I made this conviction of like, no, I'm going to stay the tried and true path. But sometimes you need to take a little bit of a fucking detour to learn to pick up something you missed, right? I learned a lot from him. Just as you said, there's something about sometimes when you date someone younger, they look at you in like this powerful way. I felt strong. I felt in my strong feminine with him in a lot of ways. Not always. But I did feel like in my frame, and I needed that for whatever reason. So this just goes out to all the women because we all tend to do this, right? We're like, I'm done with this. I'm only doing this. We make these absolute statements, but it's important to stay open to the universe about what you're actually truly needing at a soul level to grow. It's not always what you want, right? Like the Rolling Stones say, you can't always get what you want, you get what you need.
And like Jolene had said, this boy that's in my life right now, he is the university that I have called in. He is the test. And the first night I got here, Whitney, he triggered the fuck out of me. He was supposed to be here by 7, then it turned into 10, then it turned into 1:30 in the morning. 1:30 in the morning turned into I'm on my way, I'll call you when I get there. Then I wake up at 3:30 in the morning. I have this dream that my niece is all fucked up on pills. She's so on drugs. And then the dream shifted into like, he's like, change of plans. I'm partying. And then I woke up and all I could hear was, this is the test. This is the test. And I was just like, what the fuck? I call up my niece. Sure enough, she's wrecked out of her tree on pills. I'm like, oh my God, message him. He's like, oh, security wouldn't let me in. He wouldn't answer his phone. He fucking, an hour and a half later. I was just like, holy shit. I'm so triggered. I'm like, I'm in this country. I don't know the language. I don't know where I am. I'm being abandoned. Why didn't you let me know? Blah, blah, blah. He ends up showing up at 5:30 in the morning. And so once again, this like I was gonna either show up as old Kristina and lose my lid, or my choice was I sat with my inner child. I asked her how she was feeling, how she wanted me to advocate for her, what did she want me to say, and then I presented that to him. Because this is the test. This is what I needed to learn from him, right? So I just had called him in this, he is my university in order to pass to bring in the one.
Yeah, amazing. So enjoy the ride is what I say. Like it's not over yet with him, and it's not over till it's over. And the one is on its way. You know that it's not him, but I think that if more of us could relax and just enjoy the ride, we could be more at peace, right? We could understand that not everything is going to look like glistening sparkles all the time. Not everything is going to be healthy because you have to go through the muck and the unhealthiness to realize what healthy even means. How can you know what healthy means unless you've been to the depths of unhealthiness, right?
Literally.
So it sounds like that's what it is. And yeah, I feel like this is just like a big invitation to anyone listening to like just trust who comes into your path. And yes, sometimes it's about discernment, because sometimes the universe will put things in front of you to see if you're ready to say no. And that's why it's
Mhm.
all just a game of like trusting your intuition, like, but also just seeing like what is the energetic exchange, the connection with this person, right? Like if I don't know, I mean, sometimes you already made a soul contract with somebody and you're on that ride with them until it's done, until the lesson is learned that you both agreed upon, right? So it's just like this big video game where we're all
I totally agree. Absolutely.
yeah, but what a fun one. You know, if you, again, if you take the pressure off yourself that it should look like expectations, right? Oh, it shouldn't have happened this way. It should happen this way. Just enjoy it. Sit back, enjoy like you're sitting at a beach in Mexico, baby. Everything is just a day at
And
the beach.
control. It's hard to release control, right?
It is.
And that's where our connection with the high, with our divine, the higher power has to come in. Like you said, you just really have to believe. Like I truly believe with every cell in my being that I did write a soul contract before I got here. There is a plan, and it's like I can't control it. The person that I'm looking for is also looking for me, and he will step forward when it's time, when I've learned enough and I'm ready to welcome him in. And same with you and the journey you're on and everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, Kristina, this has been such a fun conversation. Thank you so much for taking time out of your tropical paradise to speak with me. Are there any final messages that you'd like to share with the listeners about your work, about your focus, about living the dream?
Just do the work, show up for yourself. The best gift that I've ever given myself is to do the healing work and to show up. And, not only am I healing myself, I'm healing my lineage, I'm healing my kids, I'm healing the people around me, holding space for other people to heal. And, like, truly, is there any better gift than we can give ourselves to heal? I don't think so.
No, definitely not. Well, if people would like to work with you, if they've been inspired by this episode and said, I need to connect with her and get on her plan and program because it sounds like what can help me, how can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram and they can find me on Facebook. I'm on TikTok. I don't really post much on TikTok, but Instagram's probably best, or Facebook. And my website is attached to my Instagram.
Beautiful. All right, Kristina, we'll get back out there. Go enjoy. The time passes so quickly, so soak up every moment. You've inspired me now to plan my next tropical trip because like I gotta get where it just looks so beautiful. So enjoy every second. Thank you so much.
Thanks, girl.
Bye.